Hi everyone, my name is Marco Seide,
And my name is Tony Chan.
and we did our final paper and project on title protection for social workers. Title protection is a concept that only those with a degree in the field can call themselves social workers. A BSW, MSW, or DSW, a bachelor's degree, master's degree, or doctorate degree in social work. And I chose this topic because it is an important priority for NASW California, the National Association of Social Workers California chapter.
And the reason why I picked title protection is because I think at the beginning of the semester when Marcos first introduced this topic, both the class and the professor never heard about it before. And that got me more interested in knowing more about what is title protection for social workers.
And for our paper and project, we had the opportunity to interview two people. The first was Rebecca Gonzales, the NASW California Director of Government Relations and Political Affairs.
And the second person that we interviewed was Logan Hess. He has a MSW degree and is the legislative director for Senator Susan Eggman of California 5th District.
And now we will let them both introduce the topic. I just
right.
I gave it my best shot trying to explain that it's basically what it is an employer can't call their employee a social worker unless they have a degree in the field. And that was what the best way I could explain it to them.
Right. And so, yeah, you can only use the social work title unless you have a degree in social work. And the reason it's important is twofold. You know, one, it's important to the profession because we are a profession, and as we're a profession that has a education that supports everything we do, you know, the basis for everything, the history, the research behind it. And people, you know, we have professional associations. We're definitely a profession just like any other profession that has a protected title, which is many professions have a protected title. You can't just call yourself a doctor, lawyer, nurse, you know, all those things without having that degree, that education. And then plus we have all that training, internships, etc. So, but the other reason is that if you have a client, they should know that their social worker is a fully educated, knowledgeable social worker. So it's also an important consumer protection issue. So that's just to round out your description. As far as I know, the first year we tried to pass the title protection in California was around 1997. There have been several attempts, 97, 98, might have been one in 2003 and 2014 or 2012, excuse me, where we tried to get a title protection bill passed in the state of California. I'm not sure, since I wasn't around in 1997, why that was the first time they tried to do it. I'm not really, it could potentially be because the profession of marriage and family therapist was growing so much, and then they started using the social work title on MFTs, but it also could have been because child welfare was starting to, they're the biggest offender, really, probably. They started using the social work title for all their workers, whether they had a degree in social work or not. And so I think it was always a problem. We didn't have title protection, but as far as I know, we didn't start trying to correct it legislatively until around 1997.
So I think just off the bat, I'll let you know I'm a social worker also. So I did my MSW at Sac State before working in the legislature. And like there's a couple of different ways to look at it in California. Like we have a practice act for social workers. So I'm sure you know we have like licensed clinical social workers, and that's about scope of practice, education, training, all that stuff. And it's like much the main focus is on protecting clients, right? Of like, if you're holding yourself out to be a licensed clinical social worker, and we know that you've done A, B, C, and D, that you have this kind of training and all that. And I think title protection is similarly intentioned, right? Like you want to make sure that if people are holding themselves out to be social workers, that they have a certain kind of base level of kind of understanding and practice. And the way that AB 252 was written, in 2013 or whatever, is it required a social work degree from accredited institution. And looking back on that bill, it did not require a master's degree. It required a social work degree. And so I would assume then that, BASW, you would also be able to be a social worker under that. And so I think the idea then with the title protection is about, protection of the community more than it is about the profession, because you want to make sure that folks are best equipped for the jobs that they're being hired for. And I think that there is some concern, especially in some of the, you see it through really sad stories sometimes in the child welfare system, where folks, who are called social workers, even in news reports, don't have the kind of background and training and education that they would have if they had a degree from an accredited social work school. So that's the main thing. But then I do think that there is some professional concern too of how people view social workers, and I mean, pardon my language on this, but I think people often hear social worker and they think of like the baby snatcher, like I'm coming into your home and I'm taking your children away, even though like the profession is so much bigger than that. It's kind of been very limited, and like people think of it in the child welfare sense. And a lot of times, like there are people that have degrees in social work, but there are a lot of people that don't, that work in that setting. And so it's kind of weird that this very specific view of what a social worker is in kind of the broader society is not specifically a social worker. So I think those are kind of the main things. It's protecting folks in the community, and then, protecting the profession.
In terms of background and research on the issue of title protection for social workers, since 2019, the NASW California Membership Committee has focused on analyzing member priorities. This led to the development, dissemination, and analysis of a membership survey to all NASW California members to get a better understanding of their priorities. Analysis of the membership survey led to the committee hosting its first statewide membership meeting. One of the major results of both the membership survey and the statewide membership meeting was the plea for NASW California to focus on title protection for social workers as one of their main priorities. The earliest attempt to pass and make title protection for social workers in California a reality was Assembly Bill 949 from 1997. Most recently, Assembly Bill 252, co-authored by former Assemblywoman Mariko Yamada and current State Senator Susan Eggman, both social workers, in 2013, would have instituted title protection for the profession like the 1997 bill, with a shorter wait time for it to become effective. Unfortunately, the bill stalled in committee and died due to inactivity in 2014. In terms of branding the issue with a motto or slogan, we decided to each come up with one that we both thought resulted in something meaningful to the issue at hand, and that was catchy. In this case, we wanted something that rhymed to be memorable.
I came up with title protection is source selection.
And I came up with CSWE degree, vital for the title. CSWE being the Council on Social Work Education. In our interview with Logan Hess, it was repeatedly emphasized that instead of branding the issue through mottos or slogans, it would be better to increase awareness and education of title protection, in addition to reframing the issue. By reframing the issue, we clarified that it should be remarketed as protecting the people we serve, our consumers, instead of ourselves. Supporters of title protection for social workers include NASW, the national office in Washington, D.C., and NASW California. Detractors of the issue are composed of county welfare workers and 3 unions for various reasons. The County Welfare Directors Association, CWDA, who represents county welfare workers across California, opposes social work title protection because they don't want to be told what to call their employees, as well as fearing having to give salary increases because of the title. Second, Service Employees International Union, SEIU, who represents numerous child welfare workers who are both real social workers with degrees in the field and those who are not, opposes the issue because they don't want to disadvantage some other workers despite the title protection bills written thus far not being retroactive and only applying moving forward. Finally, California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, CAMFT, and Licensed Professional Clinical Counselors Association, LPCA, have also opposed title protection for social workers because they have not been given that recognition and have said that the technicalities of counties having to change all of their titles would be chaotic.
So one aspect that our group considered to gain support for our movement is creating a coalition. We plan to incorporate all of our previous support mentioned before, that being the NASW and the NASW California. There are indeed other prominent stakeholders that our coalition plans to add. We plan to contact multiple existing organizations such as Sunburst Project, Gender Health Center, and also in our group called AFSCME Logo 2620. And besides those groups, there are multiple California educational institutions that have been in favor of social work title protection. Mainly these 5 universities in California are in support of title protection. And our goal is to strive to spread our message to other universities to join together with us and to spread the message that title protection is needed and to be acknowledged and the legislation should be passed. So as for educational materials that could serve as a guide in helping to educate what is title protection, is through creating some sort of pamphlet, like a brochure, and breaking down the issue so that it's much more easier to understand. So for our brochure, the front panel that we'll have is title protection being the center and NASW logo on the very bottom of the panel. The second panel will explain what are the goals and objectives of title protection. And the third panel will have the methodology and how to contact local legislators and other local government entities, like through attending local city council meetings and attending virtual town hall meetings. The fourth panel will list out all of our partnerships that are part of our coalition in support of our cause. The fifth panel will show how many states have already passed some sort of title protection. And finally, the sixth panel will have our contact information, how to get more information, and ways to help besides what's listed in the brochure.
Even though having a brochure would be useful, after both our interviews, both of us consider that in terms of priorities for the issue surrounding title protection, educational materials would be obsolete. In fact, those who receive this brochure will either not give it much attention and or treat it as junk, like most email spam ads. Again, we want to emphasize that increasing awareness and reaffirming the issue is the key element to give momentum in getting others to support title protection.
A possible pathway to ensure social work title protection becomes reality is launching a social media campaign. Social media plays a pivotal role in targeting and amassing followers, both within and outside of a community. In this day and age, owning a social media account is considered a daily necessity. We will first give a brief description of what social work title protection means, collect the general opinions by having a poll for people to answer and give us an idea on how to better improve our costs. Of course, our message will mention what actions people would take to help speed things up by participating and reposting our message to their followers and influencers. That way, with more followers, that will increase the likelihood of getting public support, and public officials cannot simply ignore this. And only using one type of media outlet wouldn't really garner any significant support, let alone clicks and viewership. Our plan is using all types of platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Most of these platforms reach millions of users daily and are accessible by using an app on their phone or on their computer. And because of this, spending money to purchase an ad is necessary to get people to notice our issue. A prime example is a YouTube ad where we could purchase a 30-second long ad that could reach millions of people.
Another method to help social work title protection become reality is interacting with elected officials at NASW California Lobby Days. Lobby Days is a 2-day event where we would spend Sunday learning about issues that are current priorities for the chapter and how to lobby. For Monday, our day spent at the state capitol meeting with legislators and or their staff to advocate for the topics we learned about. NASW California student directors, being elected statewide members of the NASW California Board of Directors, students can start small and work their way up to actual legislators. Speaking from my experience, I would argue that social work students need education and awareness of the NASW California Board of Directors and their student representatives. During our tenure, my co-director and I saw a need for a way to communicate with social work students across California, and the solution we came up with was creating a student director Facebook page. As far as monitoring progress on the issue, when another social work title protection bill comes up in the legislature in the future, we would continuously check for bill updates on either the California Assembly or Senate website, depending on which chamber the legislation originated in and its current location. Additionally, we would regularly communicate with the office of the legislator that authored the bill and possible co-sponsors. Finally, we would be in regular contact with NASW California to give regular progress updates to the state's social workers. That way, ensuring the chapter's members know we are working hard on one of their top priorities.
All that being said, to conclude, we would like to turn it over back to Logan Hess to give the final remarks regarding the future of title protection.
And, I think broadly, even when this the bill passed or was introduced in 2013 or whatever, there's pretty much a consensus that there should be title protection for social workers, I think, right? There's, at the time, at least, there was over 30 other states that had some kind of title protection. And the main thing with that is you just refer to people who are not social workers, who are doing maybe even similar work as something else, social service worker, caseworker, family service worker, whatever. And so for the future, I think it's very likely that we will do a title protection bill with my boss, Senator Eggman, in the next few years. I don't know exactly what that looks like, though. I think we've had a lot of conversations with NASW and just kind of with the folks in the legislature about what exactly that looks like, because there were some, there's some benefits to the approach of last time, and there's some negatives to it too. So I think we have to kind of have a full evaluation of what we think we can pass, what some of the concerns are that folks had the first time around that maybe we can address, and maybe what are some of the things that bill kind of left open, partly because it didn't make it that far through the legislative process, questions I'm sure that would have been answered that we would have to answer if we were going to be successful. So I imagine there will be a bill, and I hope that there will be a bill. if that's next year, I don't know. Second year of a 2-year legislative session presents its own challenges, just because it gives you that kind of much of a more limited window to work on a bill before you have to start over from the beginning. So I doubt for next year, but I think probably in the 2023-24 session.